Hello, welcome to Untangled Politics. I'm your host, Thomas Mitchell, and this week we're going to talk a lot about the bills that have passed the House of Representatives and how their journey is going to be at the Senate and the lasting impacts that they will have on society if they're even passed. Now, before I start, I want to remind everyone that I would greatly appreciate it if you would like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the content you watched today. It not only lets me know that you like what I'm posting, but it also shows that the things that I'm covering are things that people enjoy. And at the end of the day, I want people to enjoy what I have to put out there and to keep following me on it to see how we can learn more about politics each and every day. But let's get into it. So, the House of Representatives voted to legalize safeguards for LGBTQ people. This was known as the Equality Act. And reading from a direct source, the Equality Act essentially amends the existing civil rights laws to explicitly include sexual orientation and gender identification as protected characteristics. These protections would extend to employment, housing, loan applications, education, public accommodations, and other areas as well. Supporters say that the law before the House took the vote on Thursday is long overdue and would ensure that every person is treated equally under the law. See, last year, or more specifically, in the previous Congress, I believe it was 2019, when the House of Representatives was taken control by the Democrats, they did pass this bill. But regretfully, because the Senate was Republican controlled, it was never even brought up for a debate or floor vote or anything. Now that the Congress is both Democrat in the House and Democrat in the Senate is expected to take upon this vote, have hearing or make it to committees, get it vote or pass in committees, and to bring it to a House vote or floor vote in the Senate, and to have debates on it. Regretfully, as I've stated in the past, there's a thing called the filibuster, and the filibuster is quite literally meant to obstruct pieces of legislation to make them not pass. Now, if a filibuster is commenced for this, it's not necessarily the end of the world. It just makes things a lot harder. And with a filibuster, the only way to end it is to have 60 votes on the floor. And to end it, then you can bring upon a vote for it. Now, as I've stated in the past, I don't like the filibuster. And it's a shame that the Republicans would use the filibuster on things like the Equality Act. The Equality Act has been advocated by not only the LGBTQ community, but for a lot of Americans in our country. Regardless your stance on issues relating LGBT, whether you're even LGBT or just an ally, I mean, everyone agrees that LGBT people deserve equal rights. And this act has been in the making for a very long time, especially an advocacy for it. So, although it has passed the House of Representatives for this Congress, we have yet to see what will happen in the Senate. As all we know at the moment, it is guaranteed to be brought to the Senate and to have debates about it and such. But in terms of whether it's going to pass and such, we don't really know. We would have to see in the due in the next few weeks or so. I'd also like to talk about Elizabeth Warren. Now, in case you didn't know, Elizabeth Warren is a senator from Massachusetts, and she was running for presidency for the 2020 election. One of Warren's key proposals for president was the fact that she believed that we needed to tax the rich. Now, as much as progressives and liberals do say that we need to tax the rich, this is where, for lack of a better term, there was disagreements on. But as over time, people have been more exposed to the idea that it's a shame that people like Jeff Bezos pay $0 in taxes. Warren says that enough is enough. So she took it upon herself on the Senate Financial Committee to propose a bill. This bill would essentially have a 2% tax for people with a net worth between 50 million and $1 billion. The taxpayers will assets the taxpayers with assets worth over $1 billion would also be subject to a 3% tax. The tax would not apply to people whose net worth is below 50 million. Now, this bill sponsors an estimate that essentially says if we were to enact this, it would raise 2.75 trillion with a T in tax revenue over a 10-year period. Now, before all conservatives, moderates, and even some liberals get really anxious about this, Warren has said that this is essentially a tax for the ultra millionaires. They're still going to be subjected to the normal tax code, which, as far as I know, is still under the same tax code from the Trump administration. But if I'm not mistaken, Biden was willing to participate and sign a bill that would essentially make taxes for the top class, top, what's it called? Category of taxes to be 39.4%, I think it was, for the uber rich, right? So this bill would essentially say that people who make over the net worth of 50 million to a billion would then pay for this 2% extra tax, hence an ultra millionaire tax. So this isn't going to affect majority of Americans in the sense that your taxes are going to go up. It is going to go up for the people who are extremely, extremely rich. I'm pretty sure we can all agree that people like Jeff Bezos would literally still have 186 billion with a B dollars after this tax. I don't exactly know the specific numbers, but I do know that literally if Jeff Bezos was to pay this, he would literally still have $186 billion dollars just by him alone. And obviously, as you know, there's other people who are rich in this country as well. Now, I do know Jeff Bezos is the most prominent in terms of using an example to someone who doesn't pay the taxes that they should, but that's a whole topic for another day in the sense of tax exemptions and such that we don't have time to go into. But in essence, I do believe that Elizabeth Warren's bill is very much needed. I understand that it's very hard for politicians to propose budget cuts. For example, a lot of progressives are very, very weary about how much we've spent in the military. Now, I believe that the current budget for the United States, there's some areas for sure that get more money and less money than they should have. But I think we can all agree that it's very hard to decide which makes more or which um, uh, group in government gets more money or less money. And especially when it comes to the military, it's very hard to just throw budget cuts on the military for the fact that A, they're the military, B, they're meant to defend us, and C, they deserve our respect as well. Now, as I said earlier, this bill brings in $2.75 trillion dollars in tax revenue over a 10-year period that does not come from anything else. It's not like your taxes are going to be raised, corporate taxes are going to be raised. This is literally $2.75 trillion dollars in a 10-year period. That's even more than what the internal revenue for the United States would be. So it's not like it's a budget cut or we're raising everyone's taxes. It's just the selected ultra millionaires paying their fair share in taxes. And it's even more money that the government gets to then use in terms of maybe universal Medicare or green energy and such like that. There's no more need for a budget cut because now you have 2.75 trillion more dollars to spend. I think, and this is my liberal self speaking, I think that's pretty fair. No one else is affected except for the ultra, ultra rich. I think we can all agree this is probably beneficial and necessary. Now, I want to talk, and I'm going to apologize for a moment. This is going to take a while because this is a massive, massive piece of legislation that was um, passed yesterday, Wednesday. I'm recording this on Thursday, and it's called For the People Act. Now, the For the People Act is the largest, one of the largest bills centered around elections. As we all know, there was so much distrust in our electoral process, especially in the midst of a pandemic. And it doesn't help when Donald Trump and his goons spread around a false big lie that makes Americans feel that our elections are not fair, they're not secure, and that it's not fair how certain people have an advantage in the electoral process than others. So the Democrats said enough is enough. Although they disagree that our election in 2020 was fraudulent, they do agree that there are some reforms that is very much well needed, especially in 2021. I do not know exactly the last time we spent um, a good portion of government time on voting or election issues. But I do know that at least to my knowledge, the last time that anything happened in Washington in terms of drastically changing the electoral process was Citizens United. In a long story short, Citizens United really, really helped dark money in politics to be going into our electoral campaigns and such. But other than that, that was a net negative. But this For the People Act is the most recent, up to date, modern take on how to fix elections. So let me read you some of the things in the For the People Act. For the People Act would offer same day voter registration for federal elections and permit voters to make changes to their registration at the polls on the same day. What that means is certain states in the United States don't allow you to register on election day and vote on election day. Here in Florida, we don't do that. And a lot of other states in the country don't even offer that. But for the People Act, it would allow every state to have same day voter registration for federal elections. When it comes to state elections and county elections, the government has no say in that. But whenever there's a federal candidate on a ballot, the federal government has say in this. It would also require states to hold early voting for at least 15 days and would establish automatic voter registration for individuals to be eligible to vote in elections for federal office in the state. What that means is, as it says, we would have 15 days to establish automatic voter registration for people who are eligible to vote and for them to early vote. As we all know, we live in a country where election day is on a Tuesday. What's on Tuesday? It's the beginning of a work week, and not a lot of people can just take off time of work or imagine working a 9 to 5 job and you're a parent, you have to get your kids ready to school, drive them to school, then go to work, and then your responsibility is also to pick up the children, go and make dinner or like provide dinner for your family and such. And by the time you do all that, the polls are closed. And a lot of places in the United States, polls close at 7 p.m. on election day. When are you supposed to vote if you have a 9 to 5 job? That's why early voting is important. It allows you to vote on days that's most convenient for you. Technically, you have 16 days, you have 16 opportunities to vote. I'm pretty sure a lot of people can at least find one day of the 16 days to register or to vote in the election. In Florida, luckily, we do have early voting, but in case you don't know, a lot of states, including Florida, are already on a mission, specifically Republican states, to limit voting opportunities for people, especially in early voting, which is just wrong. It is meant to disenfranchise the hardworking people who cannot take a day off or don't have enough time to vote on a single day. And it just makes people not be able to have their voice heard in government. And ultimately, that is wrong. But that was a little rant. Let's go back to the For the People Act. It also makes eligible citizens provide information to state agencies like the DMV or public universities to be able to automatically register to vote unless they opt out of doing so. So, for example, if I like I applied to the University of Central Florida. If I applied to the University of Central Florida and I'm still in high school, I would automatically be able to vote, to register to vote, unless I choose not to. Pretty much how it is in Florida as well. When you get your DMV, when you go to the DMV and get your license, you're actually able to choose if you'd like to register to vote right then and there. And a lot of places in the country, they don't offer that. So this would be a step in the right direction. Then the For the People Act would also aim to expand opportunities to vote by mail and would make Election Day a federal holiday. Again, not a lot of places in this country offer that, especially Election Day being a federal holiday. If Election Day was a federal holiday, a lot of employers will not have people work that day, aka being able to vote on that day. And especially vote by mail would be beneficial because, especially in the midst of a pandemic, I voted by vote by mail. I wasn't comfortable going out in public, especially in a tight room, to vote. I just didn't feel that I didn't feel that was the best opportunity for me, and the I was afraid to get the coronavirus. I just figured, why not take advantage of something that does not expose me to a harmful situation of contracting the virus? So then I did vote by mail. But again, not a lot of places in this country are keen with vote by mail, or let alone think it's unconstitutional. For example, if this passes, every single state and territory in the United States of America will offer this. And that's great. Obviously, it will have some uh, factors to make sure that the vote is secure. I know in Florida, it's a little controversial, but you have to provide a signature on it, and you have to have a special piece of paper that secures your vote, so people can't just look and see who you voted for and throw it away. It's like a secrecy envelope, is what it's called. So I don't know exactly what the For the People Act will offer to secure the vote by mail, but I do know that they're open to ensuring that there's parameters to make sure that these votes are secure, as they are in almost every single state. Vote by mail fraudulent um, ballots is not even really a big deal in this country. It's a very small percentage. I would even say it's less than 1%. Less than 1% is not enough to overturn an election, but I digress. It would also require states to offer online voter registration and authorize 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register and to vote in advance of them becoming 18. Luckily, again, my home state of Florida, we offer both of these. There is an ability to register online to vote. And when I believe I was 17 years old, I pre registered to vote, even though I knew I would not be able to vote in the 2016 election. At the time, I was 16. So I registered to vote at 16, knowing that I could vote in the 2018 election. So again, net positive. It helps people register to vote so they don't have to worry about it in the future. Also, there's going to be different ways to increase election security, but as I said, I don't know the specifics of this. The For the People Act is 800 pages long. I don't have time to read 800 pages. So I'm sure there's a lot of parameters within it. I do know that that was a very big staple of the bill, to make sure that there's ways to secure our elections as they already are. And moving on, there's going to be an imposition to stricter limitations on foreign lobbying, require super PACs and other dark money organizations to disclose their donors. And finally, in the For the People Act, they aim to thwart gerrymandering by requiring states to use independent commissions to draw congressional district lines. Now, specifically that last one, gerrymandering, in case you don't remember, every 10 years, we participate in a census. The census, therefore, counts how many people are in the country and then allocates that information to the state, for which then the state legislator of every state is able to draw up congressional districts. For example, California may have less congressional districts because a lot of people have left the state of California. And again, it's allocated off of the proportion of your state population. If a lot of people left California, California can lose a congressional district. And let's just say all of them moved to Nebraska, Nebraska would get a new congressional district. But the problem with that is that the state legislators are able to draw it. So in Florida, for example, the Republicans own the state legislator. The Republicans would be able to draw up their own congressional districts and be able to make it in a sense that they would mainly have predominantly Republicans in every district, which would ensure that they would always win elections. That's wrong. And I'm sure Republicans would also agree that that's wrong, because if the Democrats did it, they too would not want the Democrats to rewrite districts that are more favored towards the Democratic Party. So, as I said, they plan to use an independent commission that would draw all congressional district lines. This would be a nonpartisan commission. It will strictly be based on the amount of people in a congressional district, regardless of party lines. I don't know if you've ever seen, if you really want to see a really, 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 really fucked up congressional district, look at Texas's congressional district for Dan Crenshaw, and you tell me if that's really a district, because I'm going to tell you right now, it looks like a line, like just a, looks like a little line. It's awful, but I digress. So, as I stated earlier, this has already passed the House of Representatives, which is a good feat in the or a good step in the right direction. But as I said, for the Equality Act, it's got to go to the Senate and overcome a filibuster. So I'm sure I will talk about this in the future, but as of right now, we can at least celebrate that it was able to pass the House and hopefully go to the Senate and eventually go to the president's desk to become law. Finally, I want to close out by talking about the most recent legislation that passed, which was also Wednesday, which was the George Floyd bill. This specific legislation would ban chokeholds and overhaul qualified immunity protections for law enforcement in the United States. Again, this passed last Congress, but the Republicans own the Senate. They didn't even bring it up for a debate, a floor vote, nothing. Again, it's going to the Senate. It already passed the House of Representatives. The problem is it has to again overcome a filibuster. I think you can start seeing the problem with the filibuster. It is meant to obstruct justice, it is meant to obstruct legality, it is meant to obstruct anything that would make the minority party unhappy. And that's just wrong, especially that it needs 60 votes. The last time there were 60 senators in the Senate of one particular party was specifically in 2009. It was the closest it ever was. It was either 59 or 60, I'm pretty sure. But even then, you had 60 people. There were times where some Democrats did not agree with other Democrats, so they would not overturn a filibuster. It's very rare that you have all people in a political party support the filibuster or get rid of the filibuster. And that's just wrong. Congress is literally the opposite of Congress is progress, as the saying goes, or the opposite of progress is Congress. And honestly, it seems like that. Why is there parameters that make it so hard to enact legislation, especially at a time where we, as the United States, are so divided? We have nothing changing, which only further strengthens the division. Everyone feels that the Republicans don't do anything because of the filibuster. People also think that the Democrats don't do anything because of the filibuster. Get rid of the filibuster. We have great acts: the Equality Act, the For the People Act, the George Floyd bill. We need the filibuster to be taken out. That is the responsibility of no one other than the Senate. As much as Joe Biden may have an opinion on it, he has no say in it. He is the president. He is not part of the legislative branch. He can throw opinions all he wants. He was in the Senate for a long time. He supports the filibuster, but at the end of the day, he has no say in it. Same thing for the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi is very against the filibuster, but she has no say. That is not her house, or that is not her branch in the legislative branch. Chuck Schumer and the Democrats have to incorporate legislation that would ban the filibuster. And although Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, two senators that are Democrat, mind you, are against the filibuster, it is the responsibility of West Virginians, Arizonans, and the United States to tell these two senators we need to get rid of the filibuster. And it's even more important that people tell the Republican senators we need to get rid of the filibuster. Because at the end of the day, this is a Jim Crow era rule that the Senate adopted to literally hinder civil rights legislation in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. This needs to end. This is meant to obstruct legislation and make American people's lives even more harder than it already is. And we need better for our country. And it starts by getting rid of the filibuster to allow the Equality Act, to allow the For the People Act, and to allow the George Floyd bill to pass and become law. On that note, as I said, these are all things that have passed but aren't law yet. In due time, we will see what happens with these. But for now, let's be happy that we have a Congress that can at least get the ball rolling and hopefully do their job and protect, defend, and aid in the well being of the United States of America, specifically the people that live within it. That's our show today. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching for our non audio listeners. And as I said, if you liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe, and follow. It means a lot to me and it helps me to understand what exactly people like and to make the show keep going and to make sure that people out there are accurately informed and have accurate takes on things that is happening in Washington. I love you. Thank you. And I hope you have a great day.